Hello everybody and welcome back to the Legends of Runeterra World Championship. We are going to be going into game number 3, and who's taking over? We've got Swim and Skarzig, and you know I just had to keep you on your toes a little bit there, going into that break a little bit early, just so we could bring in the big guns. So let's go ahead and welcome Swim and Skarzig to the desk right now, and get some thoughts before we get into this game. Skarzig, how are you?
Yeah,
oh,
this
yes,
is
we
gonna be
do.
a big one.
Ooh, we're going back to Group A, everybody, for match number 2, and it is between Bajatak and Realkey. And Swim, I'm sure you have a lot to say about this particular matchup, so I'm just gonna let you take it away.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about like the player backgrounds. Realkey, this 18-year-old from I believe Brazil, top 3 results over the past 9 months in grassroots tournaments, which is a really great sample size. Most notably, Realkey during the Worlds qualifiers last week brought triple Bandle Tree. This time, completely uprooting his lineup, mixing it up, which is a really bold move. You want to break down Bajatak's background, Skarzig? I know you're familiar. All right. No problem. Do you want to? Yeah, you can just start over. Yeah, no, it's gonna be a. I mean, I would say it's stacked, but it's worlds, baby. All of these are stacked. All these are the best players in the history of Runeterra, all duking it out in this top 50, top 16 over 3 days.
I mean, we've already got two 2-3 game matches back to back, which were incredibly close, I feel like. So I just want to know what's going to be happening when it comes to the Bajatak versus Realkey match, because we had so much going on for those first 2 matches, and I think this one's going to be a really close one too. What do you think, Skarzig?
Yeah, an incredibly adaptive player, and that's what you need in to be a tournament player, right? Like I said, this is a different world from ladder. The rules of this game are different. These players have open deck lists. They know the meta is going to be different. They know exactly what to expect, and the sign of a truly good tournament player is that adaptability, to be able to bring 3 completely different decks doing a completely different thing last week, and then to completely switch it up when the meta shifts. And Realkey was, I was talking to him earlier, and he did say that it was because it was a good meta call at the time, and the meta is just different now. The decks are different, they're more refined, and Bandle Tree isn't as reliable anymore.
Well, I hate to cut you both off from that incredible analysis. We'll get back to that. We're going to go to a short break, and we'll see you guys in a bit. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Legends of Runeterra World Championship. We have 2 matches down. We've got a lot more to go. So let's go ahead and welcome back in Swim and Skarzig to the desk. And I think we gotta do this again, Swim. What do you think?
Yeah. We let's just run it back. Skarzig, how are you doing, man? How are you feeling with watching these games?
I mean, I'm doing fantastic. I was just waiting in the wings, super excited to cast, and I'm also glad I could do my part in making sure that nobody else has any audio issues. I sucked them all up and drew them into my own body. So we are good to go for the rest of the cast. Really great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this next series that we're going to be doing, Bajatak versus Realkey. These are 2 of the best players, in the entire game. Realkey, this 18-year-old from Brazil, top 3 results over the past 9 months in these grassroots tournaments. In scrims, his teammates say nobody can take games off of this guy, and most notably, switched his lineup from a triple bandle tree all the way over to a completely different lineup, which shows his versatility. Skarzig, what do you think about Bajatak as a player?
Well, Bajatak, also a very young player from the EU scene, has been on a hot streak lately, taking top spots in a couple grassroots tournaments, very, very strong in scrims, and is still focusing on a very top 3 oriented lineup. Has the Nami Zoe, has the Sivir Akshan, has his own style with playing these decks as well. Not really wanting to go between switching a lot of decks, but taking the strongest decks and piloting them to perfection. And when you have so many good wins and top finishes leading up to the pinnacle of Runeterra competition today, that confidence, I think, goes such a long way to keeping your mental state sharp, and hopefully picks up a win in this best of 3 and keeps that momentum going forward.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to get into these decks and start breaking them down, because we're seeing some spicy stuff, a lot of diversity in this tournament.
Let's go ahead and pull up just the match card so everyone can get a little bit of a preview for what they're going to see between this match between Bajatak and Realkey. This is Group A, match number 2. And Swim, why don't you just go ahead and talk about those decks?
So Bajatak is bringing a Sivir Akshan list, a Draven Caitlyn list, and a Zoe Nami. It's exactly like Skarzig was saying, bringing kind of like the almost the most standard lineup. These are kind of like the 3 decks that were on everyone's radar that were doing really powerfully. Although a lot of people think that Sivir Akshan has been falling off since the nerfs came through and people have adapted around the deck better. And Skarzig, do you wanna go ahead and break down? Yeah.
And Bajatak has kind of answered that by the inclusion of Vikur and Bruiser. We've seen some people switching out the Ruin Runner for Screeching Dragon, going for a little bit more board control, and Bajatak saying, I'm just going to double down on the snowballing potential of this deck. I play my 5/5, I start getting lucky finds, extra keywords, extra stats on this big unit, and eventually it gets a spell shield and you've made your own Ruin Runner. I think it's a very smart inclusion, and just relying once again on the baked-in strength of that region combination.
Yep. And we've got Draven Caitlyn, which is sort of like, I like to describe this as a blend between Draven Scion and Draven Ezreal. It's just fully more mid-range. It's got adaptive spells, but not as many as the Ezreal version. This deck just relies on outstarving, and we're seeing the one deck that's common to both player lineups is this Draven Caitlyn deck. They both brought it.
Yeah, the Draven Caitlyn is the new evolution of the super skill focused if you've got the practice and you've got the confidence, run this and it will do you proud. Realkey trying to take a slower approach to the metagame, a little bit edge anti-meta with the Swain Twisted Fate, looking to keep the board under control, a little bit of an edge versus elusives, and with the Sejuani Gangplank, this was a deck very prominent in the previous meta because of its ability to counter Sivir Demacia with the AoE Frostbite from Sejuani, but now still relying on that tried and true power.
Yeah, and Twisted Fate Swain is another great option into stuff like Zoe Nami Sparklefly. That one's pretty debated. It's hotly debated whether that matchup's favorable for the Swain TF player or the Zoe Nami player, but they're at least going head to head. And I do love this tech from the South America region in the plunder decks, the Gangplank Sejuani decks. It's a technology coming straight from South America, but they're running one field rush in a lot of these plunder decks, and I gotta say, Skarzig, it's pretty hot.
Yeah, you've got that top end And when we look at the TF Swain, we're also looking for a lot of top end, right? With Bandletree out of the way, with the meta shifting, you have to worry about less mini-morph perhaps. This opens up a window for Leviathan to stick to the board and get that slow burn. We've seen a lot of very fast matches over the course of the broadcast so far today, but if things start to slow down based on both players' lineups, Leviathan and Swain could get that old school lockdown that he's known for.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, these decks are slowing down. Akshan Sivir is becoming more grindier, exactly like you said. They've had to replace Ruin Runner. Shapestone is not as good anymore, so they have to rely on the outgrind strategy, Bruiser and the Screeching Dragon, which we're seeing both of them in Bajatak's deck. So I do like the heavier version of Swain TF. I completely agree with you. It's a great call.
The deck has just gotten much better over time with the advent of Whispered Words, the buff to Make It Rain, also turning on Monster Harpoon as a fantastic removal option for Bilgewater. And it seems every time this deck looks like it's going to come back into the metagame, a new card or a new deck comes out that just shuts it down. And Minimorph was the new Targon, right? So now, if we can dodge the Equinox, we can dodge the Minimorph, we could see Swain's return to glory.
And we're seeing the bans come out. This is, I think, pretty much what both players had to do. The Draven Caitlyn deck just being like a good out-value grind. I really liked the way you put it. Last game we saw was about like aggro and stabilizing. This matchup is basically lineup to lineup. This is mid-range to mid-range. Both players are trying to out-value. Both players are trying to squeak in instances of pressure when they can. And it makes sense that Draven Caitlyn being kind of like the king of mid-range with Tri-Beam and Lost Soul, both players just had to ban it out. I would have expected. Yeah, no less. These are very, very good bans.
And you just take that value away from your opponent. When we actually look at both of these lists as well, the Ezreal Draven is the Caitlyn Draven is a little bit more volatile. You have the Tri-Beam to worry about. Your opponent could get something really swingy off of it. And so we're going to try to keep things clean, keep things fair, and already getting into the mulligans, we've got Realkey with that fantastic Brazil tech, Feel the Rush. Gonna throw it away for now.
Yep. And I gotta say, in the spirit of this matchup being mid-range to mid-range, pretty much this is gonna be one of the most skill-based matchups that we're seeing. No player has a super favored lineup over the other, and no deck is super favored into any of the others. This just comes down to like outvaluing, outskilling, and playing around the most stuff. Like this one is going to be just like squeaking these small instances of value.
We've got Sparklefly in Bajatak's opening hand, which is a nice failsafe, but already an aggressive curve coming from Realkey. No real way to answer the Sparklefly, but the way this deck wants to work is you go wide, you go big with the overwhelms, and just try to outpace that healing. And Sparklefly, without Nami, it's not going to be as big of a threat.
Exactly. And one of the things is, if the deck isn't putting pressure on, that Feel the Rush that Realkey could draw will just be a game ender. It's exactly for this kind of meta. The outgrind mid-range meta, just games will unironically go to 12 mana, and you will sometimes slap 10-10 overwhelms and win the game instantly.
That's what we're hoping to see, right? Such a spicy tech to come through, especially right at the advent of Worlds. We've been blessed with a metagame that's been shifting very wildly. It seems like every 2 or 3 days, there's a new deck that's countering the last OP thing that players had built. And I love the open attack here, of course, taking advantage before the double trouble potentially comes down and getting a plunder proc.
Yeah, and we don't have Bajatak's hand at this point in time, but I completely agree with you. This is a really sweet play. Honestly, a lot of this situation is going to come down to whether the Bajatak has access to the power cards, the Nami and the Shelly.
With Warning Shot coupled with the Monster Harpoon, you're going to miss out on that really awkward turn where you need to answer the Nami, but you don't want to spend your entire turn to do it. Getting the Jagged Butcher online on this turn, where the plunders are going to be coming very easy, is also great to see. Now you can just... Also, you have a free point of HP now to use your Fortune Croaker and keep drawing cards. We've seen Sejuani Gangplank run out of fuel a lot. You need your Fortune Croakers, you need perhaps your Pilfered Goods, Black Market Merchants, etc. And this looks like a fantastic early curve into a mid-game refuel, and then here comes your top end.
Exactly. And I think in this matchup, the main thing to understand, we got the hands up, nice. So we have Shelly, no Nami, but the Sparklefly. In this matchup, the thing is that the Plunder deck, Realkey over here, is going to be the aggressor. I mean, he's on a clock to win this game because if Bajatak sets up with the Shellys, with the Sparkleflies, not only is he life-stealing, but he's ending the game on his own because Realkey has no elusive blockers except for a potential sap draw.
Yeah, and then hopefully with the, you know, the nabbing of cards, we can get a little bit of utility, right? Maybe snag a Burblefish, or maybe one of the Sparkle Flies from the bottom of the deck and have a little bit more defense, but also, you know, almost everything in Nami Zoe's deck, Realkey wants. You've got defense, you've got card draw, even a Spell Thief would be fantastic. Crescent Strike does seem to be the pickup here, or do you want the Serpent just to have blockers?
Yeah, I mean, you could just take a unit off the board. I think the Serpent just plays too vulnerably into Make It Rain, and that's what he's thinking about right now. And he knows that Realkey might have one in hand, and we can see the Make It Rain in Realkey's hand. I think the Crescent Strike has to be safer.
Yeah, the Crescent Strike, and because open deck list, Bajatak knows about the Feel the Rush tech.
All right, going for the Serpent. He knows he can't attack with it here, so he's electing to save the Serpent for later because he knows that Make It Rain is going to be an issue. So he saves the Zoe, attacking to bait out the Make It Rain, and now the Serpent will be safe from it next turn. This is a really, really clean play.
The deck here with Zoe, Nami, this is, I think, the first game we've seen right now where Nami is nowhere to be found, and it has a bit of that Scouts and Lee Sin vibe, where if you don't get your power card, you're really playing from behind, and this is where the real skill comes from. This is what you want to see out of a potential world champion, is how well are you able to pilot your deck when you're drawing, you know, a slower, clunkier hand.
Oh man, Skarzak, do you see what I see?
Feel the Rush. Oh my god, this card ruled the meta so long ago and now is finally making a guest appearance. Runeterra has always been a game where if you reach far enough back into previous metagames, you really dig up some good gems that are still playable.
And this is terrifying because what that means is Realkey will have this enabled on turn 9. He'll set up for it with full spell mana. On turn 9, he's attacking odds, and that means Bajatak basically has 2 more attacks. His next 2 attacks. His last chance is to end the game before this monstrosity of a card comes down.
We need to pray that Zoe gets another star chart and Bajatak gets another chance to pick the Crescent Strike.
Exactly. And I mean, that still might happen, but he went for the snake in this case, a lot of basically just going for the early pressure relief, which is a very good line. We've got the Moonsilver, so we can start triggering Shelly this turn, which is really important.
Yeah, Moonsilver discounts the Guiding Touch, maybe get a little bit more healing, more card draw. Do you discount the Make It Rain, maybe try to even some of this out?
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, I think the Make It Rain is going to be pretty solid here. It comes down to what he wants to play this turn and how much he wants to stop. I think the Make It Rain is probably the solid play. It's a little bit unreliable, but being able to stop points of damage matter here a lot. You have to keep your health as high as possible here.
Yeah, draw out the game as long as you can. With Shelly in hand, with a Sparklefly in hand, if you can get Nami, this whole thing comes together, and there is the makings of a comeback here.
This is perfect. So he doesn't Make It Rain. It kills the attacker, or the attacker blocking Zoe. So that means that Zoe won't take a point of health here. And we can see Bajatak does a safety block with Serpent into Mirai Warden. Just in case it didn't hit the Mirai Warden, it would keep the Serpent alive. But he's playing for the health game. He blocked with the Serpent, trading it off just to keep his health above 8.
And now Realkey's offered the Monster Harpoon, takes down the Shelly.
And it's so huge here. Being able to kill the Shelly before it's a problem is huge. We see the second one in Bajatak's hands. He just needs to set up, but his tempo has been really slowed down.
Yeah, the Spell Thief's going to be able to draw some interesting cards, like get the Monster Harpoon, maybe answer this Gangplank, get it off the board before it levels. We've got the Plunder access now with these elusives, right? So an open attack, Spell Thief, Monster Harpoon.
This is really, really crazy. I mean, Bajatak has Shelly. He needs to kill in 2 attacks. He needs to kill between turn 8, or turn 6 and turn 8 are his last 2 attacks before that Feel the Rush is going to come down. And he knows that it could be a threat even as a 1-of. So he's thinking about how he can min-max this. He's going for the Monster Harpoon. This is going to slow down the Gangplank.
There is second Gangplank in hand, it looks like, with that Parley on the right side. But you still need to get this Overwhelm threat off of the board. Still has 3 mana open and available.
And we got the Sparklefly. Zoe is leveled, and that's going to give lifesteal. Yeah, I'm going to be honest, guys. Like, I wasn't either. That's going to give lifesteal to these elusives, and that is pretty huge. I mean, the parlay will come down, and it will kill this Burblefish. There's no protection here, but these little bits of damage that you're healing will matter quite a bit. And suddenly, I mean, the Shelly can be giving lifesteal later at a point. This is very, very scary.
Yeah, and so again, that was a Gangplank's Parley with the mana already being spent here to level up the Zoe. No threat of Monster Harpoon this round. So Realkey feels more comfortable doing that. Gets a Pale Cascade. More fuel. You just need to stabilize here. Now we're in this, I need to survive 2 turns, and Bajatak needs to survive 2 turns.
Yep. And there's one more attack, but because of the lifesteal units that all have like high health, you know, the Zoe's a 3/3 now permanently, sometimes this Field Rush, if it happens, might not even be lethal. But it's looking really rough as Realkey swings in with a big leveled Gangplank attack. Still got the Harpoon.
Yeah. Sunblessed Vigor, gonna protect the Zoe here and still have enough to block. Knows the Spark.
This leveled Gangplank open attack is really, really nasty, of course, because it's outside of the range of the Harpoon, and that's going to be really, really hard to stop. I mean, you're taking so much damage here from that.
Yeah, no safety block with the Sparklefly. Wants to cash in the other Sunblessed Vigor. No, it's just going to go all in protecting the Zoe.
Yeah. I think you basically have to at this point. I mean, it's got lifesteal. It's your engine, right? You haven't drawn Nami, but you were able to stick a Zoe, flip her, and now you're just hoping you get a lifesteal swarm of elusives. He's got to be able to find a way to kill Realkey on his next attack, next turn, but he has the Zap as an elusive blocker, and the Zap draws him Make It Rain.
And now we've got a barrel as well. This is going to be very difficult for Bajatak to put a board together from this. There's 11 mana. Shelly comes down, misses out on the Attune, unfortunately, but with, I mean, behold the infinite. Oh, God.
And this is a Dreadway. Not only does it buff the Make It Rain to 4 damage with the Keg, but it also draws an on-curve Gangplank's Parlay. I mean, he can wipe this board here.
And so it all comes down to
this is
burst
crazy
speed.
Counter. There's going to be so many spells. Bajatak is going to trigger that Shelly a few more times. I don't think it's going to be enough against this 4 damage Make It Rain, though.
And then, not just the HP to survive the removal, but the extra attack power. We've got 9 in play right now. We're pulling a warning shot.
This could be lethal this turn.
With line them up, knock it down. That can target the Nexus.
Oh my God. This is really, really crazy. He knows that he's vulnerable
Zap
to a
can
Make It
block
Rain
one
here.
thing. Shelly still needs to put in a lot more overtime here to carry this board.
Bajatak could be considering using a lineup up right now. If he realizes that Realkey has a Make It Rain, he knows he needs to use it before the Make It Rain hits so that the Keg acts as a dummy target. He's going in for the Zap. He's destroying the elusive blocker. This is really nasty. The Make It Rain does have the ability to hit things again. Shelly is going to buff at least one more time this turn.
So Make It Rain maybe hits the Nexus, maybe takes out this barrel so Zap can survive. Lets it go through.
Yeah, I mean, this is looking really bad. If the Make It Rain hits the Nexus, then this is already lethal. Because he has the 2 warning shots in hand, and Dreadway is doubling both of them. The lifesteal is not going to go off in time. I think Realkey wins on this turn.
Keeps the Make It Rain so the barrel removes itself, makes the math a little bit better for Make It Rain to hit where it needs to go.
But the Parlay's already sending the Nexus down to 3 because of the Keg right now. So the 2 Kegs, or the 2 warning shots on the Dreadway, are just killing this even without the Make It Rain.
Burst speed.
He has the guaranteed double Dreadway, double warning shot, lethal, before the lifesteal can happen. And that's just it.
Unreal. And if this was not the case, Shelly actually did buff up this board enough. Realkey with the Shen emote and the double warning shot. You said it, Swim. This was going to be a close match. This was going to be very skill-based.
Oh my God. That was absolutely insane how close that finisher came down. I mean, in one more turn, the Field Rush might have done the same thing, but it was very, very close to Bajatak being able to end the game right then and there with those elusives.
And that was with no Nami. Still giving Realkey a run for their money.
All right, so Realkey has got the win through with Plunder, and now he just needs to play his Swain, Twisted Fate, Bilgewater Noxus deck against Sivir Akshan and Nami, going for one more win.
This is going to be more draw dependent, right? Because the deck doesn't have... It's very hard for these Swain decks to shift gears to be aggressive, and so you need your removal spells to come through for you, so it lines up perfectly against these Sparkle Flies and these Namis when they come down. You need Make It Rain to set up your Ravenous Flocks to overcome the large potential HP that these decks might have. And what's even worse is Guiding Touch will just counter your Ravenous Flock. Oh no, Nami in the opening hand.
It's a disaster. Realkey's going to need removal for this, but he does keep a Death Sand and a Harpoon. He knows that those elusives are going to get big real fast, so he knows this Harpoon is how he wins this matchup. Now, a lot of people see Swain TF as a counter to Zoe Nami, but I mean, Bajatak has the perfect hand here, right? Nami, Zoe, Double Trouble. I mean, he's thinking about keeping the Sunblessed Vigor because his hand is so made.
And Swain doesn't punish you for doing float Double Trouble like we saw in the previous game. Right?
Exactly.
There's no early pirates. There's like crusty codgers to help you level the Swain, but that's a pittance of damage. Here we go already. These players, the early game is all about stacking up mana, building up your resources, and then going in. Realkey even going for the Whispered Words immediately. Couple Twisted Fates can really help shut down some elusive swings down the road. Well, hopefully those will be perfectly timed from Realkey.
Yeah, this matchup is going to be pretty interesting. One of the things that makes Nami so powerful when you are able to draw her in that deck is not only is that she's hard to kill, so the opponent has to spend a lot of resources killing her, but when you kill Nami, if she buffs several times a Sparklefly or an elusive before she dies, sometimes you just lose to that. But Realkey has the perfect hand of countering that. He's got multiple ways of killing multiple things, and he got 2 zaps, 2 elusive blockers.
2 elusive blockers. You've got the Arachnoid Sentries as well for stuns. Even if Nami does her duty here and gets a big elusive set up, you know, it's still going to be very difficult to bring that damage to bear. And as we get later and later into the game, Nami doesn't have a way to move Swain out of the way or deal with Leviathan.
Exactly.
If you get that stun lockdown on the elusives, then it'll be smooth sailing from here. Gifts from Beyond being triggered, getting the Nami in play as well.
There it is. So this is very, very interesting. Bajatak knows that the Nami is potentially a bit vulnerable here. He does not have a Vigor to protect her, but in this case, he knows that she can actually like buff these land units before she dies, and that could actually be a call for him making a really, really aggressive play and just going for these like cheap units. He knows Realkey doesn't really have a defensive hand, and I think that's why he's making this play.
Buffing up the units from Double Trouble would be a nice flexible option from Bajatak. It's not all about the elusives. Like, you still have early Swarm, you still have early board control, and these Swain Twisted Fate decks have no healing, so if you can get some early tempo like this, some early free damage, maybe you only need 1 Sparklefly or 1 Shelly to stick to close out the game. Monster Harpoon now, threatening the Nami. Very fortunate it's landing here with no Vigor.
Exactly. I mean, Vigor would be really, really bad here. Realkey knows he has to go in there. And it's unfortunate because Bajatak had to heal the Nami preemptively to play around a flock that Realkey doesn't have, of course. Still very much the correct play by both players, but the Monster Harpoon is a big punish to that. Yeah,
you can see the layers and layers of respect the players have for each other's hands, each other's lineups, and also just the mind games at this level of competition where Realkey is going to now be setting up these forks with the removal and potential chip damage. Sometimes you're chipping away at a unit and you don't care because you're like, well, I'm just going to buff it back up with Nami anyway. But there's always that threat against Swain Twisted Fate because of Ravenous Flock.
Yeah, and it's because he knows that Swain has such an aggressive hand that he has to play the Nami there. These buffs are still not going anywhere. These buffs are still permanent. These units are still a threat. We see Realkey is down to 13 health, so the Zoe Nami deck is very, very much the aggressor in this kind of situation. And even though the Nami's off the board, Bajatak is looking for probably a single copy of Shelly to feel good about this.
Yeah, I mean, the Zoe can come down. We've got a lot of we've got the Sparklefly army, but I talked about it a little bit last game. You know, Sparklefly without a means to buff it is very lackluster. And this could just be the, you know, death by 1,000 cuts, where 1 or 2 elusive damage every round is what puts Realkey on the back foot. We need to start investing in these zaps. So far, Realkey has spent all the mana on removal spells and being very reactive.
Yeah, and this Twisted Fate down is also a big deal. If this Twisted Fate doesn't die, then Realkey doesn't have access to red card, which could be a punisher to Zoe if Bajatak doesn't draw any blocks. He drew Sunblessed Vigor, which is actually pretty big here. Still looking for something a little bit more beefy like a Shelly. He just needs to race down with Elusives before the Swain Leviathan comes out and completely locks the game down.
Yeah, we're already on round 6. Leviathan is in hand. If anything too ridiculous happens on Bajatak's side, Realkey does have the Arachnoid Sentry to fall back on, and now the Zap Spray Fins are getting their time to shine.
This is absolutely gigantic. Calibrum will take down a Zap. Right now, what Bajatak is looking for is Zoe to hit this Nexus. This Zoe has to connect because the super cool star chart can net you Equinox, and that's how you stop the Leviathan. So he needs this Zoe to connect. He's got to be a little bit scared of a Culling Strike here. If Realkey realizes that the Equinox is such a threat, he might have to Culling Strike the Zoe here. Culling Strike would shut down that option entirely, and if he uses Make It Rain, he has to know there will probably be a way to keep the Zoe alive.
I love the Culling Strike here. This is like the best target for it, and one of the only times you're going to be able to guarantee that it's going to connect before Nami buffs its target out of range.
Absolutely amazing. And we see the second Zoe in Bajatak's hand, but we stopped one Zoe attack. We can set up Swain and Leviathan very soon here, and if we can stop the second Zoe attack, no Leviathan means it's basically over. But Realkey's at really low health. I mean, at this point, he's got to be worried about just these wide attacks.
And we would love to see like a Dreadway Deckhand or something here to buff up this Make It Rain, make it feel a bit more safe. We do have Death's Hand as well. And at this point, you aren't caring about the elusive stats per se. It's just, again, this slow chip damage. And if there is a Shelly or there is a Nami, even if it's answered immediately, they just play their burst speed on stack.
This is it. Gets Culling Strike.
Whispered Words,
Whispered Words is so huge here. Being able to replenish this hand and search for the beef
is
super big. All right. He knows he's good to let this through. His health doesn't matter. He's life-stealing it all back from the Sparklefly anyway, but he needs to hit. A single Shelly off this would be monumental.
Because now you can float the remaining 3 mana, and then you go into the next round with a full clip.
Exactly. Didn't hit anything, but he still has the Pale Cascade. That's still cycle, it's still damage and lifesteal. And he can keep the Zoe alive for cheap here. There it is. This Zoe, he has another one in hand, but he might want to keep this one alive because this one is closer to being leveled. It's seen a few casts already.
Yeah, keeps it alive, and by having third Zoe in hand, you get Sleepy Trouble Bubble, which can bail you out.
All right, and we're seeing a re-up on Death's Hand here. He knows that the Challenger is vulnerable right now uniquely. Bajatak is out of mana, so he's killing it while he has no opportunity to save it. And that's really, really important because now Zap is an elusive blocker. It won't get dragged away by the Poro.
And Shelly off the top!
That's huge!
And you're just like, you're going to jettison here.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. That deck, the funny thing about that deck is Jettison, you don't even really mind pulling it because it's just another spell trigger. Sleepy Bubble Trouble is potentially 2 more. Shelly is going to be buffing this entire board, and one of the elusive blockers is down already. Is this it?
Yeah, because Shelly doesn't buff herself, right?
Shelly does not buff herself. Between the Scorched Earth, Realkey should be able to survive this one turn, but it's going to be real low.
And maybe that's all we need. If you Scorched Earth the Zoe, prevent the Star Chart, prevent the Equinox, maybe Leviathan comes through, maybe Swain gets to clear a path here alongside Arachnoid Sentry to hit the Nexus somehow and then get that AoE going. I'm not even sure what Swain's level up progress is here, but he's got to be leveled up by now with the Make It Rains, with the Monster Harpoons, the Death Sands we've seen.
Is going to be really tight. Goes for the Arachnoid Sentry on the Shelly. Instead, he has to protect his health here. His health is so low, he's almost dying to stuff like this Make It Rain. And if he doesn't protect his health, he can die. But that means the Zoe gets the strike, which means a Star Chart could get the Equinox, locking him out of the Leviathan win condition. We can survive here, but we're really low. We can go down to 3 health. He has to kill the lifesteals.
And it's ironic that you have to... I think you block the 3-2.
Yeah, I think you're just set up to stabilize.
Because
I agree.
if Swain Leviathan happens, then you just lock Bajatak out of the game. and then you overcome this lifesteal here, trying to stay alive with as much HP as possible. This keeps you out of range of line 'em up, knock 'em down, and the make it rain stuff. There's still one
exactly
more
right.
Spell Thief in the deck too, I think, so you can maybe even steal something that can reach for the Nexus. This is a terrifying position to be in, however, is Realkey. And the Shelly's so perfectly timed by Bajatak.
He knows he's in a bad spot here. He knows he just has to cycle and pray. And he knows the Twisted Fate in his hand isn't going to be usable, because Bajatak knows that if he kills it, he turns the pick a card back into Twisted Fate. So he's just using Twisted Fate's pick a card here, because Bajatak would never let this Twisted Fate die. The Twisted Fate levels off of it, which does give him a bit of a win condition. Red card is not going to do that much against this buffed board, but gold card at least stops one attack.
This is a very rare treat. You only see Sway Twisted Fate level up here every once in a great while.
Skarsig. That second Shelly is so scary here. I mean, we have the double deckhands on the side of Realkey, and that's going to do a really good job of empowering the red cards in the Make It Rain, but the two Shellys buffing everything between them is just going to keep them out of that range. He knows he has to play the deckhand now because he wants to get these kegs before the red card comes out.
Drawing a card. What are you looking for here? Whispered Words, even more fuel. But the one thing that you want, you can't get. No healing.
The Shellys will buff each other now.
And so now we've got red card and gold card, getting some stuns now from the leveled up Swain. Can Realkey clear a path for this Noxian commander?
It's so rough.
Crescent
These spells are going to be huge.
Strike!
It's huge. He can just block. He can stop these attacks now. He's electing not to do it. Goes for the Make It Rain instead. That's going to hit the keg, stopping the red card's damage. And look at all these buffs. I mean, these units are just not dying to anything.
Goes for Make It Rain here to still get value out of the barrel.
You have to.
One hits the Nexus, gets a stun.
All right. The gold card is going to be hitting that Sparklefly already. And I mean, I don't know how Realkey can put enough pressure on here. I mean, the lifesteal that's been happening in this game, the fact that Bajatak is still at 15 health, makes Realkey have a hard time threatening any kind of real lethal here.
And then you've got Crescent Strike, and this means that there is no threat of the Swain attacking through. You can still swing in with the 3-2 and the 2-2 if you'd like.
But the elusive lethal next turn just looks too hard to stop. Even with shutting down the Nami earlier, he just didn't really have the ability to apply the pressure he needed or stop the elusives, right? I mean, those are your two win conditions here. Apply early pressure or just go hard control.
Yeah, you're dealing a little bit of damage here, but there's not going to be any top deck lethals, even with the Whispered Words. It's way too little burn available in this archetype. And wow, just a magnificent stabilization from Bajatak. Even though the offense didn't get accelerated with the Nami like we're used to seeing out of this deck, just the persistent damage, 1, 2, 3 points a turn, really adds up this late into the game. We're just getting into round 10. The Leviathan ended up being too slow because the pressure was on.
Exactly. And we see the Burblefish on top. I mean, you can open attack here or you can develop Burblefish for more buffs. At this point, you are not too worried about anything. Realkey is at 3 health. You know, only one of these has to get through, and you know there's just not enough that can stop these many attacks.
Yeah, the Culling Strike is useless. You can put a bunch of spells on the stack to try to get red card and gold card, but Swain Stun only affects things that aren't already attacking you. So this is going to be game 2 going to Bajatak, and we called it Swim. We knew these sets were going to be ridiculously close, but to see Bajatak play from behind like this and Realkey understand the matchup to the point where that early reactive keep, that smart mulligan, brought the game to this position, but double Shelly is hard for any deck. There is still a way out of this,
Skarsig, and it's off of the Pale Cascade, because Realkey does have the gold card from Swain that's going to stun the Zoe.
Okay.
And if there's something that he can get off of the draw, he knows that this is going to be the red into the gold, but it's not quite enough. He needed to find a Ravenous Flock from that Whispered Words, and he actually could have stayed alive here. But without the Flock, I don't think it can happen.
Yeah, we actually went all game without seeing it.
Yeah, which is really a shame, because, you know, Flock is usually how you counter this matchup. That's why a lot of Zoe Namis are actually running one of Astral Protection to counter the Flocks, trying to counter them. But no flock off of that Whispered Words means we are just not quite good enough here. Although it was surprisingly close at the end here. He almost survived with this attack. This was a super close game.
Incredibly close.
And you know what that means? We're going to game 3 off of this Sparklefly Lethal, and it's going to be Bajatak's Sivir Auction deck against Realkey's TF Swing deck running back. That, oh man, another close matchup. I mean, this is such a close series. Like, all of these games are ending with just like inches of health remaining.
The players have very smart reads on the metagame.
Yes.
You know that players aren't really going to be accounting for TF Swain, but when you take this old school meta knowledge and you apply it to the current metagame, you start to see, oh, now the meta shifted in this particular direction into a very mid-rangey direction. You have the potential to go for greed. Right? You have the removal for your opponent's power cards, and then you have that incredibly potent top end with the Swain Leviathan. And when we look at the Sivir Auction deck, their only response is Concerted Strike for the most part. As long as you get your Make It Rains early, your Death Sand to pop the Spell Shield, even Arachnoid Sentry to pop a Spell Shield, you really shut down a lot of the dominant board potential that Sivir is known for, and you just go from there.
That's exactly right. It really was the Ruinous Runner nerf, because before, when Ruin Runner was in the Sivir Auction deck, most people considered this matchup to be favorable for Auction Sivir, because you put on enough early pressure, and the Spell Shield is just so valuable here. You have such a hard time taking it off to enable your removal. But now that Ruin Runner's nerfed, it's out of the deck. Bajatak is going to be running Screeching Dragon and Victorian Bruiser instead. Suddenly, Swain TF is a bit favorable.
Oh man, Mirai Warden hitting Mage Seeker Conservator. This is going to be some shenanigans. I'm calling it now.
Oh my god. Mage Seeker Conservator could get any expensive spell in the entire game.
We're hoping for Feel the Rush, right, Swim?
Oh yeah, we are. The other Feel the Rush deck. Bajatak has actually a pretty awkward hand here. I mean, the Merciless Hunter at 2 health is a lot more punishable now than before, of course. The Sharp Sights will keep some stuff alive, but not really cost effective.
And again, holding the Make It Rain, even though you have the lineup potentially against the Merciless Hunter, you're still eating potentially a buff there, but you've got good trades all around. So you don't need to waste that removal spell. Realkey is holding this specifically to pop the spell shields for later on in the game. The hand is fully reactive right now, and hopefully a few units, some Whispered Words to come through here to round this out. Maybe even Mage Seeker Conservator gets something like, Remembrance to generate a big unit.
Yeah, this is a really interesting board state. I mean, Realkey has good counters to everything. If you're looking at the hands, the Make It Rains, the Flocks are going to do everything and just like kill off any chance at an aggressive stance Bajatak has. But Realkey might run out of value, right? He has no draw. There's a Vengeance for free, which is not bad. We'll at least be able to trade down with a 5-mana card.
Yeah, you can, and if Make It Rain scoops up a spell shield here and there, that allows you to sit on the Vengeance until Bajatak commits into a big swing, or maybe even just kills a Bruiser before it starts getting its value up. Sharp Sight going to protect Auction from the Death's Hand, but still vulnerable to Ravenous Flock.
But the Brightsteel Protector has the action. It can come down before the Flock if he knows that he could be playing around it. There's the Protector. He knows that the Flock is enabled, and now the Make It Rain kind of has to set up the Flock through the barrier.
And every time you target Akshan, you're accelerating your Warlord's Palace. By protecting your unit, you're even furthering your win condition again.
The Make It Rain misses the Auction! That's so big. The second one, though, will hit the Auction for sure, but it won't be in time for the Flock. So on this attack, you have to set up the Flock into the second Make It Rain. You know it's a guarantee, and the Sharp Sight doesn't save it. So we should see that sequence here. It has to be, of course, the Make It Rain gets cast second, because it'll resolve first and enable the Flock. There it is. And he knows this wipes the board. He knows Sharp Sight doesn't do anything here, and this Auction is going down at perfect mana response.
A lot of value's already been gotten, though, again, just by accelerating the Warlords.
Exactly.
You're going to get that treasure, get that extra predict plus a draw to refuel. Bajatak has double Preservarium. And now that we've seen this jockeying for position in the early game, as we approach the mid game, we know that Realkey wants to take a back seat, wants to cool off, stock up some spell mana, draw some cards. This opens up Bajatak to go for something really cheeky like double Preservarium. And then they're both going to go into the late game with so many resources available.
And I mean, the weird thing is, Bajatak on Sivir Auction is actually going to be favored here in this hand state, because even though Realkey had the perfect answers, his hand was super kind of low value, right? With all the Make It Rains, with all the flocks, he's running out of steam. Bajatak is sitting comfortably. Look at this, the double Preservarium, the Warlord's Palace that's going to be triggering. I mean, you are just never running out of resources, and Realkey's hand kind of relied on starving Bajatak out of resources.
That all being said, 8 HP on the Nexus, just a little bit more to go. The big issue, of course, being that as soon as Bajatak gets set up on the board, Realkey is no longer going to be able to threaten any sort of wide attack, any sort of cheeky elusive thing with the zaps. And when you force Swain TF into a position where they have to start rooting through their entire deck for burn, how many death stands do I have left? Can I hit a Make It Rain or a Parley here? It's not going to be enough burn, but fortunately, Make It Rain does still line up against the Sivir, pops the spell shield. This is exactly what you want to see.
Right away with a leveled Swain. And I gotta say, I mean, this situation, bizarrely enough, in this situation, Realkey is the aggressor here, right? Like, we have so much value coming out on the side of Bajatak. He's never going to run out of resources. Realkey's kind of on a clock to end this game, even though he's playing Swain TF.
Sivir goes down, 3 mana available. Realkey knows that a second Sivir won't be able to come down, keeping mana still open for the Ravenous Flock.
He's going aggressive. This is exactly what I was talking about. This is the aggressive play. He knows that's just how he wins this. He's going in for the Nexus next turn, and the Merciless Hunter is a blocker, but it's not necessarily going to be enough. I mean, as long as we have a Swain blocker, we're fine. Realkey needs to draw something to delete that one.
Some elusive damage. That's
very valuable. If this draws Nexus damage, Swain can stun. There's the culling. Not useful here.
Yeah, I was wondering if there would be an open attack. You put the Swain in a little bit of danger in exchange for 4 damage on the Nexus.
I think the developed Zap just has to be more value. If you get a Death Sand or a Make It Rain, you deal so much damage with Swain stun, but the Culling Strike feels bad. I mean, we might see Bajatak stabilize here. His hand is awkward. These 2 rally draws are not what he wants here.
Yeah, so Zap goes in, just sets down to 6, and things are getting even tighter for Bajatak here. And this is very similar to what we saw in the last game, right? Very behind, very low on HP, and then the power cards come through to stabilize. Warlord's Palace is about to pop in the next couple rounds, and it might be where the predict and draw is not the option taken. It might be the Sandstone Charger to take advantage of dragging the Swain to the side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just need to stabilize. The Concerted Strike is a huge top deck. This will threaten the Swain. Or a potential Leviathan. That's very, very big off that draw.
If Bajatak is feeling enough pressure here, the Concerted Strike could be cashed in right now. The units are undamaged. You don't have to worry about Ravenous Flock countering this. Bajatak knows there is still 1 random spell from Mageseeker Conservator in Realkey's hand. But at this stage of the game with 5 HP, there's not much wiggle room you have to play around those sorts of things.
But the Death's Hand draw does change things, because now if the Concerted Strike comes down, the Swain can protect itself, because there's no second target that Bajatak can strike with that has more than 2 health. Merciless Hunter nerf.
So important here. It's just for the sake of holding down the early game, trying to cheese out some early damage with the Fearsome to set up for Sivir. But hopefully Verkur and Bruiser can fill in for her now that she's nowhere to be seen.
Yep. And it's actually a little bit bizarre. I mean, we'd like to be able to play the Fleet for the Tracker, but we don't have enough board space for it. We can attack here, and Aegis will also pop our Palace.
Yeah, and because of the lack of value trades, you know, the rallies become very rough.
this Death Sand, he's trying to stun before this attack happens, but this is vulnerable to Concerted Strike now because there's no protection against this. He has to use Vengeance in response to the Concerted Strike on the Bruiser, and that might just be game. If the Concerted Strike happens here, the Vengeance closes it out.
And Bajatak is going to feel so bad.
You have to. You
for
have
the
to
Vengeance.
do it.
Yeah.
The Mage Seeker Conservator.
I knew the
Vengeance
shenanigans
is
was coming.
this. No way. That is absolutely insane. The Concerted Strike, I don't think you have a choice. I think it's a forced play.
Because you want to Concerted Strike on the Bruiser, because you get Lucky Find as well from the Strike. Yep. And that maybe sets up a... there it is.
And we know the Vengeance has to come down on the Bruiser, locking out the ability to kill Swain, stopping the Bruiser from attacking, to gain Lucky Strikes, to gain anything at all. And suddenly, Realkey is in a dominating position.
Bruiser dies, the Merciless Hunter dies, the stun from the Death's Hand comes through onto the Sandstone Charger.
And that's just gotta be it. I mean, there's no...
He
has the ability.
We can summon the Sandstone Charger from Warlord's Palace now.
Yeah.
To still kill
man,
Swain.
This is crazy. And the Fleet for the Tracker can come down too, and it will gain the Challenger off of that. This is huge. He can actually kill the Zap too with the Fleet for the Tracker.
Oh, wait, just takes advantage of the vulnerable.
He's got to know. Oh, he's got to see it. Wait.
There it is.
Yep. It's pulling it out. And he knows the bird is killing the Zap. He knows this board is trading down. This is tight. Both players are out of resources. Bajatak has a second draw coming out for the Preservarium, but his hand is bricked. It's just double rallies. Realkey's hand is just as bricked as well. These are both on top decks, but Bajatak's on 4 health.
That means that Realkey can get Twisted Fate for a blue card. Or Leviathan. Let's see it.
Whispered Words. Any draw is valuable here. This is just a resource game. Hired Gun is not going to be good.
We've got Culling Strike for Akshan.
Oh, this is crazy. We're down to 2 health, so we're in range of killing with stuff like Leviathan if we draw it at this point. That deck is not healing.
Akshan comes down, gets the Sentinel's Palace in play. We've got Golden Aegis to rally. And this will target Akshan, accelerate both of these palaces by 1, and allow you to attack again. Doesn't want to risk it, though.
Oh, man. This is intense. At this point, Realkey has lost control of the board. At this point, he is looking for a Leviathan or a Zap. He just needs to deal this last 2 damage over the top. That's it.
Culling Strike against the Akshan. Has to stop this train from coming after, like, we know that Bajatak had the read on Realkey's hand, that it was very reactive, very slow, had the 1 spell from Mage Seeker Conservator that is now out of the equation. When we flip it and look at it from Realkey's perspective, he's saying those 2 spells have been sitting in the hand the entire game. Those are certainly rallies.
He knows.
And so
exactly.
he's confident that that removal is going to go through. No!
Oh, the top decks are not helping out.
Sivir
on the other side.
Bajatak with these comeback wins.
It's an absolute disaster for Realkey. I mean, at this point, I think it's just too late for the Zap or the Leviathan. Between these 2 rallies, this Sivir is just ending it.
We've got a stun, which gets eaten by the spell shield. Sivir, at the very least, is going to come through here.
And the double rally this turn is just a little too much, I think. I don't see any way that Realkey can get out of this one. It's so close. He has the keg. If he can survive this turn, then a Make It Rain top deck off of an open attack could save him, but I don't think he's living this turn.
Yeah, Bajatak has to kind of waste a little
down.
bit of this tempo here just to answer the keg, to play around that. And there's always the chance that Realkey does get the Leviathan, and then Bajatak pulls that second Concerted Strike out of the deck.
Yeah, we see the keg drag, so at this point, there's just nothing
Come
keeping
on,
him safe.
Realkey. Zap. Okay.
Oh my god, this is so close. The Zap's not drawing anything valuable here. He can't survive this attack, and the 2 damage is just out of range. If he had 1 health, then a Death's Hand would kill. A Make It Rain could kill, but 2 damage without the attack token or without going into next turn with a Leviathan is just not going to happen. It's so close.
We've got 3 damage coming through. We've got the Relentless Pursuit to rally with the Sivir. We've got Sandstone Charger and Shape Stone.
And that just has to be it. I mean, this extra attack, he can survive potentially 1 more turn. If the rally comes out now, Zap is an additional blocker. He's going for the sands. This is the final attack. I mean, it's not actually lethal. It's still a little bit short, which means if Realkey does draw the Leviathan, is he still good?
It would be Leviathan into, I think, very specifically the Concerted Strike. I think gives Bajatak the means to answer.
Yeah, that's it. If he draws Leviathan here, and there's no draw on Bajatak, he wins the game on the spot.
Position, and you can't draw it.
No way! And that's it. The game is over.
Oh
Realkey has done
my
it.
god!
There's actually no way out of this. Now the Absolver is going to trigger the Horde, and now he needs to find the draw or the
Font
predict
of
the other
Power.
one that's going to pull the Concerted.
Is there
He needs
another rally?
Concerted. There's no rally, no Concerted. He's looking deeper. No way.
Gets more draw off the Warlord's Palace.
All right.
This is
the
a predict.
He needs a Concerted here. He's running 2 in the deck. He snap picks. That's the Concerted.
Concerted
That's the right answer. That's it.
Oh
Bajatak
my
takes
god!
it. What? What was this finish? That was absolutely ridiculous.
Realkey could not top deck that Leviathan 3 rounds sooner to close this out.
What? And that's
Whispered words. Hang on. Whispered words into the double make it. Oh god.
No way, no way.
It.
Oh my god, dude. I almost had a heart attack. That was the death stand. That was a second death stand. That almost just won this game too. What? And it's a 1 health. Bajatak is going to take this series.
Game 3, 1 HP remaining. The miracle sequence of buffs and self-targeting abilities to accelerate the Sentinel's Horde and the Warlord's Palace to get as many card draws as possible at the last minute into the second Concerted Strike.
That was an absolutely ridiculous. That was the best ending to a tournament game I've ever seen.
I mean, it was so back and forth, right? At one point, you know, it looked like Realkey had it getting the Leviathan, and then all of a sudden, you see Bajatak get the Concerted Strike, and I just had no idea how it was going to end because there were just cards coming out constantly. But this was an incredibly close series through and through. I mean, Swim, game number 1, game number 2, and then obviously game number 3, that was so close.
It was absolutely ridiculous. This was like all 3 games were decided by literally 2 Nexus health each. All 3 games. 2 Nexus health would have made the difference in all 3 of them. That was absolutely insane.
And Bajatak just that game 3 was the all-star. Don't get me wrong, but when we look at the Zoe Nami, being able to pilot that deck from behind and just get the Shelly at the last minute, so unfortunate for Realkey to go through the early mid game dealing with these combat tricks, these attacking aggressive units, and the spell shield, and then having it ground down to a top deck war and not getting anything useful for 3 or 4 rounds is just. With so many strong top decks, they came through right at the end.
I mean, what's better than 1 Shelly, but 2 Shelly in that game, right? We're going to go ahead and take a look at the standings now and just catch our breath for a second as we look at what has happened so far. In Group A, we have What Am I taking a win, and Bajatak, of course, taking that win in that close series. In Group B, we've got Al Kaido right now on the board, and we're going to jump into our next Group B match, but we've got to change out our casters. So Swim, thank you so much for your casting of these last 2 matches. We're gonna see you in a little bit.